Thank you, Father Mendes. First of all, I just want to congratulate the St. Mary's College Old Boys Union for hosting such a conference like this, a symposium like this. Because I think this is where we need to go in Trinidad and Tobago. Everything is not a matter of politics, and the politics that's being played, not politics of parties necessarily, although there's a part for that. But I think what we do here is critical. People sitting, discussing matters, trying to come up with directions about the way forward. That is the kind of politics I think that needs to be, we need to see more of in this town. But that's just my private view. I should say also that I entered this school 50 years ago. 50 years ago. And I met there people like Father Harvey, with whom I played basketball. We played on the same basketball team. And people like Terry Farrell and so on. So we are not and we're still young, aren't we? Aren't we, Terry? Okay. So we understand that actually, looking around at the furniture here, these chairs were here in 1963. So in discussion with Dr. Mohammed, we were trying to calculate how much St. Mary's would have saved in terms of expenditure, capital expenditure, by way of having these chairs for 50 years. Because you know the cost of furniture is very high. If you change every year, you're in trouble. So there's a significant savings, and that's a model. She was trying to discover why do children take such good care of chairs here, and in other schools, it's quite the opposite. So I told her, well, we have to set up a task force to understand that. The dimension of the problem that I'm required to discuss is the problematic of how parents have to meet the challenge of socializing young men, and a few other things. But what struck me at the outset is the concern of the issue of traditional expectations of academic achievement and career advancement. I don't know what that is in today's world. How do young people view career advancement? And what are the traditional expectations of parents and the school system? In other words, what business are we really in? Really, you know. And as an aside, I was chatting with Dr. Mohammed at lunch as well. We talked about the fact that the classroom layout hasn't changed. The classroom layout indicates a kind of order that teachers at the top talking down to the children, just like how we are right now, talking down to you. And the children are facing each other's heads and so on. Quite not very stimulating, and not able to look at each other and engage each other in a participatory context. I don't know what you guys can do to change that in the next 50 years. Because I think it's critical that we look at structure and layout and so on, and its role in facilitating participation and interest and stimulation of people to learn. St. Mary's College is quite unique in having 3 or 4 playing spaces, and that sometimes compensates for the kinds of heads we look at in the class. You know, sometimes we used to tap up people and so on because you have seen heads. So what you do here is you tap them up, right? But the spaces outside within the school allows children at least to let off steam, to play, to interact, to become normal. There are many schools in which that architecture doesn't allow for normal human contact. And those things are some structural problems which we need to attend to as well. But my job is not to focus on that today. My job is to talk as a parent. Well, I had a son who went here. In fact, he was here under Father Mendes and so on. And I remember what struck me most about that experience was the fact that we did things together. The parents of that year in Form 1 had a kind of organization, and they planned the children's extracurricular activities. They were involved in the educational activities as well. And throughout that period, Form 1 to Form 2, I think, there was certain parent groups that kept together and were part of the educational experience. I don't know if Father Mendes remembers that, part of the educational experience. And that, in fact, was the most critical thing as far as my son was concerned about school life. School life is fun, must be happy. Of course, we had a good time in our time as well, but those kids at that time had a social life that was healthy, developmental, creative, stimulating, and so on. And it was across the board, not only the kids who played sport and who were tops in sport, but it was all of the kids in all of the Form 1s at that time. And certainly people like Father Mendes, because he was much younger at that time, was able to stimulate that kind of direction and culture. Because you need to have a culture in order to operate. But getting back to my concern, talking about career development and the role of the family and parents and so on, dealing with that. We know that the global economy is in a state of dysfunction and recalibration. We know that jobs are disappearing everywhere: Europe, North America, Latin America, China, Caribbean, and even Trinidad. Does the current curriculum prepare the student with the flexibility to adapt to a changing technological and economic environment? These are some of the issues and questions that may be answered by other panels. But this may well lead us to discover one of the key drivers of academic performance among adolescents at school. At the same time, parents and teachers may be in conflict with adolescents because they don't enjoy a consensus on the nature and value of the educational offering available at school. Now, kids may be saying that it's a waste of time to study this, waste of time to study that, and we're not hearing them. Nor are we trying to sell to them or help them to understand the relevance and the connection of a particular subject matter to their possibilities in the future. I think some time has to be spent with children trying to explain to them the value of what we do and how it relates to life in various ways. And even though they may not be becoming linguists or whatever, there's an importance in understanding why to study a language, because it will impact on commerce, it will impact on technology in the future, it will impact, although you don't want to become a linguist, you can use that in a particular way to enhance your further development and so on. So the question of value has to be negotiated. And hear my words, negotiated. Not I tell you to do that, do so and so and so. Because you know the concepts. Tell, sell, involve, participate. The tell and sell are more on the autocratic side. The involve and participate are more on the democratic participatory side. So there's a fundamental need to shift the paradigm into a more engaging, participatory one. Because given what kids know and what kids can have information about, they have the right and the capacity to challenge. And that's their job, actually. It shows that they're thinking. Now let's begin with the methodology at the start. As you proceed to interrogate this problem, what are the perspectives of key stakeholders? Which important stakeholders are missing at this table here? And I dare say, one of the obstacles to this discourse is the absence of adolescents themselves at our table. Okay? But because the design was far developed, it could not have been changed when we had our planning meeting a couple of days ago, our final planning meeting a couple of days ago. But I did raise that issue, that the kids need to be here to defend their perspectives. That's my first point, really. Parents and adolescents may hold different positions on the relationship between the current academic content and their own career aspirations. Young people, especially creative young people, tend to see spaces in the market that parents and teachers may not be able to visualize or deem viable. That's a kind of conflict. Parents and teachers who are not able to listen to the aspirations and futuristic orientation of their children and facilitate or help them explore career dreams may exhibit a tendency to impose an authoritarian type direction that can have an effect of suppression and frustration of legitimate options. Okay, like the Mashamantano types and so on, who wanted to go into arts and whatever. You know, we have to understand that and see it as relevant and important and give them the encouragement and the resources to head into those directions, both within the school curriculum and in preparation for the future. If not, adolescents just lock off. They turn the key and they just lock you off. They say, oh, good, you stay right there. Me ain't doing that. And they have their own plans. You know, they may be doing online courses and all kinds of preparations for you know, I have a nephew, a cousin actually, who is in Tricanal. He's a Tricanal, I think, media manager or some kind of computer kind of role, and that's his job. Subsequently went to study that and then came back. But in an earlier time, it was a little challenge, you know, what's the importance of that? You know, so the parents tend to have these conflicts, you know. One of the most prominent challenges that many parents may face in the contemporary period is one of lack of competence and understanding of the concepts, the content of the curriculum to which their children are exposed. Even in cases where a parent has a solid background of secondary or tertiary education, the level of subject matter may render parents ignorant and defensive. There's a severe challenge to parental authority. So therefore, the only way to be an effective parent is to seek dialogue and guidance from the adolescent, from teachers, from school guidance personnel, and other persons who are proficient in the various areas of human development. This requires a level of role flexibility. I remember myself, I was a language person, Latin, French, Spanish. My son wanted nothing of that. He wanted to go into the sciences and so on. Well, I didn't get to do sciences further than Form 3 because I only made 70%. You know, the fellows in the class were making like 90 and 95 and so on. So when time comes for selection, I really wanted to be on the science side. But he was able to enter that science area. Today he's a professor of robotics at American University. Okay, but I didn't understand a lot of what he was doing. But you have to have some faith in them and you have to have some challenge and so on. And I think that kind of openness is what's required by parents. Okay? So as parents, we are no longer in charge. We have to migrate to a kind of partnership model in which power and authority is markedly different. Parents therefore need to come to terms with this phenomenon and therefore engage children with an attitude of respect and humility while providing psychosocial support and guidance. The situation in which parents find themselves, or parents who don't possess an academic orientation, is infinitely more challenging. However, where there's a warm, empathic, genuineness, positive regard, the adolescent is likely to feel more secure and committed to pleasing the parents in spite of their limitations in the academic sphere. Both parents and teachers need to be aware and understand the impact of the adolescent development process, in which interests can change from day to day. That's just part of how adolescents are. They can change from day to day because they're growing physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially, and sometimes even spiritually as well. The major decision tends to be taken at around Form 3, when they're not sure of who they are and what they want to be. That's a big, big challenge. At the same time, when that decision has been made, children may be in households or family settings and so on, where they may be experience a family conflict internally of one kind or another. And this reality can complicate matters further. Because while children are going through all these family breakups and dynamics like that, they expect to choose and be settled and so on, etc. If we don't have a handle on that, on an appreciation of that, then we are having a serious problem in the school system and not responding to it. Parental control becomes a challenge, and their powerlessness is often not understood and appreciated by the school system, who becomes judgmental. Parents not controlling their child. That's what teachers tell children. You know, parents are a waste of time and so on, etc., etc., etc. Parents are experiencing economic hardship or psychosocial difficulty. And we know that in terms of the children, when the affect is disturbed, the intellect cannot take its course. We understand that, don't we? So affective education is important. Affective philosophy in education is also important. We have to look after the whole person. We talk about that probably in the School of Education, but we don't do it when we have the children face to face before us. Strategies of working collaboratively with parents to build competencies to manage adolescents need to be instituted. These are implications for the PTAs and so on, and other mechanisms such as Old Boys. Like the Old Boys today have sponsored this conference, a very important talking point and a point of departure for developing clear strategies about the way forward. It won't happen today, but it will happen when we meet in various working groups to really plow through clear data, direction, determine what research needs to be done, and embark on doing it. Because answers don't come just in a symposium like this. Symposium, we're really sowing the seeds. That's the meaning of symposium. PTAs sometimes provide brochures. In fact, I'm quite pleased recently I saw brochures from the PTA about how to cope with problems and so on. But brochures and so on, that's one thing, that's information. People need practical support. They need access to help, real help and guidance and so on, in order to help them to help themselves and help children to succeed. So, in my last 5 minutes, what can parents do differently? And I'll be even swifter than that. One, parents need to connect with each other. They need to connect with each other. That's a learning that has come. There needs to be a connection. PTAs, as well as other private parent support groups or whatever. Parents need to listen to the aspirations of children and listen to their assessment, what children are saying. I remember a couple of cases, children are telling parents things even about their own siblings. Parents don't listen. Next thing you know, child dies or child is found in some bush or somewhere because we don't listen to what they're saying. Okay? We need to understand what their dreams are and so on, because that's a source of their motivation. You know, what their interest, it brings interest and excitement. We need to also help each other as parents. We need to set up systems such as helplines, help nets, blogs and so on, etc. Call-in facilities and so on, to allow parents to provide information and to seek help and also to offer help. Because parents have competencies that they can share with each other. Okay? We need to sponsor parent development activities. So the school needs to be a center for that, and parents need to get together and do that. School is a great place. It's open on weekends. We need to commission, most important, multidisciplinary research to produce definitive answers to specific problems. Or we need to develop new models for new direction. But we need to commission groups to work on research. We need to seek out available resources in the community which people don't know of, which may even exist at present, for help. And last but by no means least, we need to work collaboratively with the school. That's parents, that is. We need to be part of the school relationships. And one of my pet peeves, in schools we have deans of discipline. I also would like to see deans of development. Thank you.